Hello again! This is Voodoo People with the devlog for the final version of Dom Carts. I'll spare you the full intro. If you want to find out more about the context of this, there's another video which is part 1 of the devlog for Dom Carts, which is the map I made for Team Fortress 2 Classic, where I explain a lot more of the context of it. So I'm just going to jump right into this one. So as you can see, this map is now fully art passed because it's released. And in my opinion, it looks pretty good. At least I think so, because I made it. So, but I'm very happy with it. It was just as much fun to art pass as it was to make the layout. Maybe a little more tedious, but you know, two sides of the coin. So I'm gonna try and go in more or less the same order as the first video. I might deviate here and there, but whatever. So the spawn room. The spawn room was actually the first place that I art passed as well. As you can see, you know, it looks a lot more interesting. It's kind of like a garage. I mean, as you saw out here, the theme is a dirty metal scrapyard. I wanted to do something which was a little bit different from all the existing maps in TF2. I thought this would fit pretty well. To be perfectly honest, a lot of the feedback that I've gotten about it has said that like it doesn't really fit the TF2 or TF2C art style. I don't really know why people say this. I think it looks pretty fitting, but I don't know. I might just be biased because, you know, I'm the one who made it. But anyway, yeah. So the spawn room. So it's kind of like a garage, and like this just metal hallway into this crane room. You know, I guess I thought like, yeah, like, why are these carts going around in a circle? You should pick stuff up off of it, right? I kind of decided in my head, the lore, you know, my head canon for this map is that like red and blue have both been dumping their experimental technology here for a long time, and now they've just like they're just stealing each other's junk and reassembling it and putting it back in the scrapyard because, you know, they're idiots. And that's kind of established over here. If anyone's ever gone over here to the side of the spawn room, you can see that like this is like a little secret outpost room. I didn't want to go like full spy tech, like full secret spy base. This is like an outpost where they have people, you know, they come to work, you know, they clock in over here and then they go to the security office, authorized personnel only, and it's like they've got some of their spy tech equipment here and they've got a camera and they're like disassembling an old wrecked Sentry, you know, they got their coffee pot over there, they're staying up all night, they got their reels of all the you know, the sessions they've had disassembling this stuff, and they've got like their tape player over there. I put a lot of effort into this one spot. I felt like there's not a lot of space to establish like lore in maps, and so I just kind of like to try and put it all into one spot. So it's like you look at it, you get an idea for what's going on here. You know, this is just the non-playable space over here. It's just this big pile of junk with some like vehicles out here and stuff like that. But beyond that, it's just a regular spawn room. You know, I already talked about the layout of the spawn room in the first video, and it did not change at all, so I'm not even going to bother going into it. This is also still the same, just, you know, art passed. The layout is more or less the same. I talked about these walls that I lowered so sentries can shoot it a little more effectively. I rose the ground here, as you can see, with the displacement, which allows you to actually go up here. Because I realized it was just kind of like, it's a pretty easy spot for snipers to hang out here and also over here, because they could be relatively unchallenged by like spies and other classes. So I made it a bit easier to get up here. These ramps, I talked about this in the first video. I added these ramps so that it's a little more obvious that like you are allowed to go up here. This is not accidental. This catwalk was a later addition as well. I saw it as a way to, like, you know, if this was a really popular sniping spot in the early versions of this map. I'm not sure if it still is, but the snipers love to hang out here because you get to see the enemy capping, you know, or riding the cart out here, and you snipe them from here. And you're relatively remote, like you're not being constantly harassed. But I added this here so spies could come and kind of run along this catwalk and go harass the snipers. Let's see. This ramp here, I talked about how this led to nothing in the first version, and it's true, it did. I'll talk about that hole in a second too. Now it leads to this upper area. where I thought this would be a kind of a good spot for a sentry gun. It's because that way, like, if the enemy team is capping and you have a sentry gun right here, you know, you're riding the cart, and then, oopsie, you're just getting shot from up here. I don't really see it being used that much, but, people use it sometimes. Or you just get a height advantage, you can, you know, ambush the enemy team from up here. This little spy closet here is, there were more of these around the map before, but I removed them because I felt like they were kind of too obvious. It's like, oh yeah, this is where a spy is going to go. But I left this one simply because I imagined this as an engineer spot, and so I wanted the spy to have somewhere safe that they could come and sap the sentry from. And one of the things you know this is people really liked this when I added this. They thought it was a lot of people noticed this and like were laughing at it. Is like I put these little spy masks in here, almost as a little way to like communicate to players that this is a good spot for a spy to decloak. Some people said maybe it's a little bit too obvious for a spy. It's like the engineer will always be checking, but I don't know. I think it still works. This is the only one that made it. There used to be another one over here. It used to be right here. And there used to be another one right here where this box is. But I ended up getting rid of both of those because they weren't seeing much use and they were just kind of cluttering things up. So, whatever. I mean, it's also a good spot to like hide a teleporter or something. So, this one-way gate was added here because it used to just be like an open wall. But the problem was that the enemy team kept coming through here, and I remember watching demos of playtests and the poor engineer just trying so hard to build a sentry here and just getting wrecked over and over again from enemies that were coming in through this door. And I felt so bad for this poor engineer that I was like, okay, I need to add a one-way gate here. And then obviously this was not present in the first version, but you have this height advantage to like shoot down on the enemy team here. I talked about this. This was the area with the pile of boxes that I said was really awkwardly placed. And this wall, which I said used to be a grate, but then I changed it to being solid, so you can't really see the enemy's movements behind there. It makes it at least a little bit hard to spam them. Yeah, this just kind of gives you access to a little bit of visibility in the enemy base, like protected visibility, and you have access to this catwalk, which allows you to get over here and harass these snipers, which I talked about earlier. This was also done for a bit of a performance reasons, because I had some performance issues early on with this map. Because when you stand right here, I think even to this day, if you turn on your frame rate, you'll see that like it's the worst right here looking in this direction, because you're rendering everything down there, and everything through here, and sometimes a little bit of what's down here. And this wall was put here to mitigate that. You don't render nearly as much, because this wall is blocking it, so... I think it also helped. I think it adds a little bit of like, I don't know, security to this position here. Another problem on this ramp was the cart model. Okay, I'll talk about the cart model in a second because I don't want to forget about that. But you can see as this cart goes up here, like you actually can't even jump on the back of it. Like it's just basically impossible. I experimented with like clip brushes and ways to try and like run up the cart, but like none of them really worked. And the only thing that I could find worked was this sort of concrete wall which you can hop up and then walk up onto the cart. It's not perfect. I'm not really happy really with like how that all worked out, but I don't know. It seemed to be the best possible solution, so I went with it. This window was also added because I found that like I said, this spot is such a devastating position to spam down here. I thought that like, okay, if I have this window here, it allows you to kind of like mess with the spammers from up here. You can get them from here, and you can get them from behind here. And I found that did mitigate it a little bit. It's still a really popular spot for people to attack, but it's not nearly as like a death grip on the enemy team as it used to be. So yeah, I'll talk about the cart just quickly for a second. This cart model was made by another member of our community named Triton, and I think it's pretty obvious to see that it is based off of the Half-Life 1 cart from On a Rail, which was exactly what I wanted. And it's been adapted a little bit. It's been made a bit wider to fit the size of the cart, which is already in the first version. But honestly, he did such an amazing job with it. Like, it looks awesome. It's the Half-Life 1 cart, but it actually looks like TF2. Like it fits in with the art style just perfectly. So, just really happy with that cart model. And people comment on it all the time when playing the map. Like it's a really great addition to it. So I'm super happy with how it turned out. Okay, so anyway, back to mid. Yeah, so let's talk about the mid room, because like I said, this was the thing that changed the most in the current version from the first version, and it went through a few different iterations. But yeah, you can see there's a lot more height variation now. There's these kind of like terraced metal platforms and stuff. This used to be just that. This used to just be it, the block with the ramp, right? Um, and it just got expanded upon, right? And actually, the block with the ramp kind of became the tunnel into the death pit room, or not the death pit room. Sorry, the kill box room. It just was one of those things where like I have this block and it's doing nothing, and I have this hallway, and just to kind of like put them together like this, it also made it a little bit less like you're not just walking out and suddenly you're like, under attack from mid. It's like it gives this sort of, you have to go around. It adds a little bit more. Um, I don't know, a little bit more interesting path. It's not just like come out, turn right, go left. If you want to actually go from base to base through mid, you have to do this sort of snake path to get there. And that was one of the things that just kind of like clicked together later on that I was really happy with. Um, the windows, the windows got replaced with one window. Um, one window and a balcony, because there was too much of a sightline problem with the second window here, and it just like this thing was getting in its way, and I wasn't having it. So I replaced it with a square window to allow you to get a better view of the yard. There's a balcony and a staircase, and I talked about earlier how I didn't like how hard it was to rocket jump in, but I think I came to a nice little compromise here. I added this box here deliberately. I don't know how obvious it is, but this is meant to be a launch pad for either a rocket jump or a jump pad. And the idea here is that you can rocket jump up here, and it's way easier to land this jump now. But it's way easier on top of the death pit. Like you gotta take a little bit of a risk to get up here. You gotta at least be okay at rocket jumping to pull this off consistently. I don't really see people using it as a jump pad spot much. I think because it gets killed very easily because it's out in the open. Like a good jump pad spot needs a bit of protection. Otherwise, it just gets focused down. Like people just shoot a grenade at it and it's dead. And then, yeah, I tried when I played engineer on this map to put a jump pad here, and I remember just getting really frustrated that it got blown up, like just within like 30 seconds every time. But whatever, it is what it is. The death pit. So yeah, I talked about how it became something a little bit more dramatic. It used to just be like this blue dev texture, and now it's a burning pit of jagged metal and garbage. As soon as I went with the metal scrapyard theme, I knew this is what I wanted to have in here. One time when I was streaming some of my mapping, and a developer by the name of Physics was watching, and he said like, "Oh, you should turn it into like a big grinder." Like one of those machines. I don't know what they're called, but like they're like they have like spinning cog wheels that are like interlocked with each other, and it shoot. There's like videos of them on YouTube, and like they can just destroy anything within seconds. And he also suggested that for the map I'm currently working on, VIPR Factory, and there's one in Sunnyside, which is a map he worked on. So I think Physics has a bit of an obsession with like meat grinder death pits. But it would have been nice, but I wanted something which just looked absolutely horrific to fall into, and like of course a meat grinder would be horrific to fall into, but like I feel like it'd be over pretty quickly. Like I wanted you to feel like when you're falling down here, like there's these metal spikes sticking out, there's like this saw blade, like it's just jagged metal, it's on fire. Like I wanted it to just look like if you were to fall down this, it's like in real life, this would be like the worst possible end, so I think I accomplished this. I was pretty happy with how this turned out. I had a bit of a problem with the particle effects for a while. This fire effect did not work, but it just so happened that the TF2C devs fixed all the particle effects very shortly before this map was released. So thank you guys. You made me not have to compromise on my artistic vision here, and it's much appreciated. I added these kind of rickety support beams here just to make it, I mean, it's perfectly solid technically. It's just a brush, but like just to add to the psychological effect of like how dangerous this thing would be. Also, this banana. which originally used to just be there for aesthetic purposes, but people actually thought, no, you should slip on it. So now it actually does reduce the friction. That was also made possible by the update from the devs. Before, like, it was much harder to make a kind of low friction effect before the 2.2 update, but that added it. So thanks, dev, for making the Dom Cards banana a reality. Yeah, I think since I talked about a lot of the gameplay elements in the first video, like, there's not much else to be said because, like, pretty much everything stayed the same other than that. The skybox went through a couple of iterations. It was originally a bit more cartoony, like it had just this sort of like two-dimensional, jagged metal wall. I think there's still echoes of it out here. Yeah, like these guys. Like it was all just surrounded by these things. But people, I don't know, they kind of didn't like they didn't like that. They thought that it looked like a little too cartoony and not really TF2y. I again disagreed. I thought it looked a lot like the two-dimensional tree card props that are used in Alpine maps, but I relented in this case and I added a proper 3D skybox, which, you know, it looks pretty good. It's maybe they were right. I added this wall of cars here, and then beyond it is a more of the dump, and I just put these city building props everywhere around it. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with how the skybox turned out. I remember saying that I had a bit of trouble integrating it because I did not take it into account initially, and that's true. But I'm happy with how it turned out in general. I'm also very happy with the tire fire. People commented on the tire fire a lot, which I really liked because I also, like, when I added this thing, I was like, nah, this is going to be like the centerpiece of the map, even though it's kind of off to the side. But yeah, I knew it's like, well, if it's going to be like a dirty old scrapyard dump area, it's got to have a big burning tire fire. And people really like this. It was one of the things they commented on early on. It's very memorable. It really gives the map its character. So, yeah, I'm happy with the tire fire. I feel like some of the things with art passing here that are just maybe worth noting from more of like a mapping perspective, like things that I learned, is kind of doing like this one-way window thing, like having a slightly lighter, maybe not white, but like a slightly lighter texture on either side of this, because it gives the impression of a window without actually having to be a window, and it's just kind of a nice technique to give a room a bit more character. Another thing is that, like, if you actually look closely, if I go into this window, I think this is it. I go here and then turn around, you can see that it doesn't actually quite match up. If I just kind of, yeah, you can see they don't quite match up. And this is a little trick that you can do as a mapper where, like, inside the symmetry looks nice like this, and outside the symmetry looks nice like that. And they just don't quite line up. I mean, like, you don't want to do this unless you absolutely have to, because, you know, you want it to be perfect. But, like, it's a way you can cheat a little bit, and, you know, it's not real life, thankfully, so you can have the best of both worlds. I think this is also happening over here. Is this where... No, these ones actually match properly. And I'm doing the same thing here again. I didn't want to actually have windows out here for both performance and gameplay reasons, and so I just make it white here and black here. Maybe white wasn't the right color for this because the sky isn't really that bright, but I remember changing it to a darker color and it just looked weird, so white it is. And pretty much nobody ever commented on it. Everyone just sort of looked at it and thought, oh, that looks normal, so, you know. I think it's these windows. Or wait, is it? No, these ones also match, apparently. Oh, it's these. Aha, that's what it is. So I I cheated even harder with these ones. So these windows match, right? This one does not match because there's this. You know, it just leads to nothing. But like, why would there be a window here if this is like a spot for these tanks? You know. And over here, it's like if I stop these windows stop here because this box is in the way, right? But it would look really weird if the windows just stopped here. So people don't really notice this when they're playing, you know? Like, they're just here and they're like, oh, yeah, windows, okay. And then over here, they're like, windows, there's no windows, okay. Like, you can cheat a little bit like this. You want to be careful, you know? Like, don't go a little bit Don't go overboard with it, because people will start to notice, but, you know, don't be afraid to cheat a little bit on things like this if it makes the experience overall better. I think another example of this is this hopper. For one, I forgot to put something down here to connect this to, but maybe it's just hanging loose, you know? Maybe it's like, this used to be bolted up there, but it like fell down because it's old and rickety. But the real sin here is that if you go here, it's connected to nothing. Because in order to justify this, I would have had to put something here. Maybe I could have put some kind of like vent hole here or something, but I think this was added pretty late in development, and I just didn't want to deal with it. So it is what it is. And this always really bugged me. This gantry prop, this one here, is really nice. I really like this prop because it's a way to like put something on the ceiling, which gives it a lot more character and depth, and it just looks nice. But the thing is just so damn long, and it was sticking out of the wall here, and I had no idea what to do with it. And I just built this like weird metal thing around it. Because people were pointing it out. They're like, hey, that prop is clipped through the wall. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But like, I don't know about modeling. Like, I don't know how to actually fix that. I didn't want to ask someone to do it. So I just put this goofy-ass thing around it, and people stopped complaining about it. So, I don't know. Your fixes don't always need to make sense. It just, I guess, needs to look like... It just has to look like you fixed it, you know? The same problem is actually over here, because the same gantry prop is up here. That's just a different skin. And you can see it I'm just covering it with this brush here, which also, when you really look at this thing, you're like, why is that there? Like, that makes no sense at all. But, you know, oh, and you know what? I just noticed, wow, it's clipping out a little bit more. Oh well. But you just add these little things, and as long as you don't see the problem, people don't complain about the problem, you know? Yeah, I think that's basically it. I guess the one thing to say is I said I would say this in the last video and I didn't cover it, is that the way that we ended up fixing the, and I say we because I had help on this, specifically Jaws at the TF2C mapping community. The way you fix this is like, you add what's called a PL train watcher. And actually it's an entity which is meant to control the payload cart's position on the HUD for a payload map. And you actually have to do a little bit of hacking around to get rid of the payload HUD if you put it in. But if you put a PL train watcher on the Funk track train that this thing is, it actually, like, in the source engine, it changes how it works. I guess because they wanted to, like, you know, preserve any kind of, like, legacy, like, any legacy logic for other maps that, you know, might be dependent on the collision physics or whatever. But when you add a PL train watcher, it like makes the Funk track train a different kind of Funk track train. And it makes it so that, like, for one, if you stand on it and it starts moving, like rotating, you don't rotate with it, which feels way nicer, despite not being physically accurate. It's just like a much more cohesive and enjoyable game experience for the player. And what else? It makes collisions handled just better. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, you just stop getting stuck in things. I think there's still a little bit of jankiness sometimes, especially on servers that are having like some connectivity issues. Sometimes it'll like teleport you off because it thinks you're stuck, and if that happens up here, it can be kind of frustrating because you get like teleported into the death pit. I have not seen this happen very often, but I have seen it happen, and it has happened to me. So it's just an unfortunate bit of jank that I don't think we'll ever really be free of, unless the devs fix it, the TF2C devs fix it, and I just don't think it's that high on their priority list. So, and maybe one last thing about the cart too is that, like, people might have also noticed that, like, when you stand on this cart, this railing and this orange, like, I don't know what that's, like a gearbox or something, there's no collision on it. You can just walk through it. I did not want it to be this way. I wanted it to actually be like something you could crouch behind and take cover behind. But the problem is that the odd shape of it, if you kind of walk up into here while it's turning, you do kind of still get stuck, despite the improved collision logic given by the PL Train Watcher entity. You kind of get stuck, and what happens is, like, you sort of like glide, like the game just keeps moving you in that direction until you're free. And it's not as bad. Like, it doesn't completely soft lock you into the ground, but it's just not enjoyable. So in the end, I just removed collision for the front of the train and just kind of dealt with it. And people were a bit surprised at first. They're like, hey, why does this not have collision? But like after a while, they just stopped questioning it. It's just one of those source engine jank things that people are just kind of used to tolerating at this point. So it is what it is. And with that, I think that's now everything I wanted to talk about. I've gone on for 25 minutes now, more than I expected to say, but yeah, just to close, like, this map was, like, it was a lot of fun to make, and the TF2C mapping community is really awesome. If, for whatever reason, you're a non-mapper and you're watching this, thanks for listening to me ramble for this long. I hope it inspires you to kind of, like, go make maps of your own, because mapping is a really, really super cool hobby. You get to really, like, realize your vision for a video game. You get to get it played by other people, and it's, like, it's a really nice feeling to like have other people sort of like spend their limited free time playing something that you made. You know, like they can do anything with their time, and like they're sort of experiencing something that you worked hard on, and it's a lot of fun. So I encourage you to give it a try. The truth is, people joke about Hammer Editor and they say that it's like super jank and super difficult. You know, with enough practice, it's really not that hard. There's a lot of tutorials. There's a lot of helpful people in the TF2C mapping community. We have a Discord channel, which you should check out. We're there to support new mappers as well, so like you don't have to be experienced. We'll guide you along at like any stage of the process. So, you know, do it. If you've been thinking about making a map, you want to try it, I tell you, just do it. Just download Hammer after this video and watch some tutorials on YouTube and just start mapping. Just start. It's a lot of fun, and you might discover that you have a new, really amazing, addictive hobby that you just can't stop doing. So that's now finally it. I'll see you when I make a devlog about my next map, VIPR Factory, so stay tuned.